Hello, hello. Hey, good afternoon, guys. My name is Hanna, and I'm so happy to be moderating this panel. I know this is a very tricky timing, just following the lucky draw, and also the keynote from Vitalik, and also after lunch. But our topic, as mentioned, is very, invigorating, and I'm the thorn among the roses here, which is the gentleman. I'm going to introduce first Mr. Daniel Kim, CEO of Tiger Research. Please give a round of applause. Saad Ahmed, head of APAC at Gemini. Let's give a round of applause. Lennix Lai, Chief Commercial Officer at OKX. And last but not the least, Mr. Paul Kim, CEO of XPLA. Thank you. And yeah, so we're pretty excited to share our insights and share everything that we know about Southeast Asia. And as we mentioned a while ago, or as the host mentioned a while ago, Southeast Asia SEA-6 countries refers to Thailand, Indonesia, Vietnam, Philippines, and Singapore without any without any order, right? So I just want to give a few introductions. Daniel, do you want to say a few words in terms of an introduction about yourself and the Tiger Research?
Okay. Thank you so much. Saad Kap, I'm Daniel Kim from Tiger Research. We're a research and consulting firm based out of Seoul, South Korea, Hanoi, and Jakarta. We help non-Asian projects connect to Asia and also connect Asian projects to the Western world. Thank you very much.
Right.
Sure, yeah. Hi, I'm Saad. So I run Gemini, the exchange in the Asia-Pacific region. As you might know, we're an exchange. Our headquarters here is in Singapore. I have a sort of non-crypto background. I used to run ride-hailing and deliveries companies across Southeast Asia, sort of setting up the business across various markets, India, Southeast Asia, at Uber and Grab as part of the founding team across those two companies.
Thank you. Lennix.
Hi, I'm Lennix. I'm the CCO of OKX, and I think our team spent around the last 6-7 years to build OKX day one.
Thank you, Paul.
Hi, my name is Paul Kim, the CEO for XPLA, or XPLA. We are a layer one chain built on Cosmos. We are focusing on a couple of verticals, which are gaming and entertainment. And that's because XPLA is built by one of the largest gaming companies from Korea called Come2Us. We've built this layer one as a permissionless chain, a public chain, so that not only can we onboard our own games onto the chain, but also to onboard third-party games as well. We are very big in gaming, but we're also heavily invested into the Korean entertainment industry in Korea. So with, the billions of dollars worth of IPs that we have first-party access to, we want to create a gaming and entertainment ecosystem for the blockchain.
Perfect. Thanks so much. So like I mentioned, I'm Hanna. I'm Director of Marketing at Blockdaemon. Blockdaemon is a leading Web3 infrastructure company. We support institutions and work with most of you guys here in terms of node staking and wallets. So let me dive straight into it now. So Daniel, can you provide high-level insights regarding the adoption patterns in user behaviors and Web3 across the SEA-6 countries?
Fantastic. So we're all now in Bangkok, at the heart of Thailand, and it's obvious that Southeast Asia is the most fastly growing and the most expected region, I think, in the world, along with other emerging markets. But there are some common things across Southeast Asia as well as differences. But to just highlight, I'm already said, but a very fast-growing economy. With a very young population, with a median age between 25 to 30, really gives empowers a lot of energies to younger generations and enterprises and startups to do new things, and not only in blockchain itself, but also in other technology areas. And also, I like to highlight generally the regulators are very industry friendly. I think one of the reasons is because Southeast Asia in the past has really never been the number one in any of the industry, but I think that time now has come for Southeast Asia with very affluent infrastructure and very good talents. It's really a good time and high time for really come to the mainstream in the global business, especially in blockchain. I think although there are some commonalities among these 6 countries, each countries have a bit of differences. I think Thailand has largest trading volume in Southeast Asia with a very affluent middle class, and also a lot of traditional finance and capital market participants are interested, including like SEBX. They are really interested in exploring a blockchain and traditional capital markets. Indonesia obviously is the 4th largest populated market in the world. The government is very friendly. There's actually the world's first to come up with a nationally operated crypto exchange system. So there's a lot of potential with Indonesia. Philippines is the center of Web3 games. 20 to 30% of the first generation play-to-earn games, Axie Infinity, the players were from Philippines. So I think still Philippines has a lot of power and energy around blockchain games. Vietnam is only after India has the most largest pool of blockchain developers, and the largest pool of developers and projects based out of Southeast Asia. And they have Sky Mavis and Ronin, which can kind of acts as a hero effect of a lot of Vietnamese developers and young students trying to become the next Sky Mavis or Ronin out in Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City. Singapore is obviously the regulatory hub where regulatory uncertainties are less than other parts of the world. Or did I forget Malaysia? CoinGecko, ETHScan. These are a world-class infrastructure and data analytics companies, and they are based out of Malaysia. So with all that said, I think there's so much potential and energy around Web3 blockchain technology in Southeast Asia. And I think all of us here have somewhat of an interest in working with or entering or expanding to this region. And I'd like to make 3 advices for companies here. One is you must localize. English is not the most commonly spoken language. So I think it's really, really important to localize, have a team here, at least have your ambassadors here. Second is building a community of users and potentially investors of your crypto assets. And by doing so, I should mingle with the local people and also respectful of the local cultures. And last is respect the regulatory framework in each country, because Southeast Asia is not like a European Union or federation of different countries. It's independent jurisdictions. So be mindful of the regulations, which are quite picky and somewhat gray in certain regions.
I want to piggyback on something that you said in terms of the narrative, which aligns to gaming, which you mentioned. You know, Philippines is big at, and obviously there are also like gaming studios based in Vietnam. So Paul, for, XPLA, which is obviously like a layer on chain building on games, do you see the same kind of narrative in the rest of like Southeast Asia markets, or do you want to comment on how you're observing this?
Well, the Web3 gaming in general, I think, obviously the quality of games are getting better and better. But the issue with Web3 game is still there, meaning there's no real there's no like tokenomics that really that we found that really works for a game for it to be not only successful in acquiring users but also to be able to sustain the game for a long period of time.
Yep.
Because so far with the play to earn games, I mean, people will play your games just to make money, earn tokens. But obviously, at the end of the day, that's not sustainable for any type of games. And I don't think that trend is going to change anytime soon until we have that one game that really can break through these barriers in Web3 games and really have a game that maximizes the benefits of Web3 within a gaming ecosystem. And we haven't seen that, and it's hard to imagine seeing it in the next couple of years. I think it'll take longer than that.
Yep. The adoption process is not like, instantaneous.
And that's what I was
Growing.
getting at, which was in order for Web3 games to be successful, what we need to do is to really be able to attract the Web2 gamers over to Web3 gaming. And the incentives for that isn't there right now. Because if you look at the Web2 gaming culture, they are okay with paying hundreds, thousands of dollars for items that, gives them the illusion of ownership within their account, where actually it's whatever assets that they purchase is owned by the game studios and not really them, but they're okay with that illusion. With blockchain and Web3 gaming, we are able to give the full ownership to the users, but at the moment, I don't think that's a strong enough incentive to attract the Web2 gamers over to Web3. But so until we figure that out, until we are able to give Web2 gamers the right incentives for them to convert over to Web3, it'll be really difficult. So we'll see the same type of gaming trends that we've seen in the past.
Yep. All right. Thanks for the insights on that. So I'm gonna move on to the exchanges right here. So I'm gonna start with Lennix. So obviously the exchanges you guys operate, more like a bigger market, not just like in Southeast Asia, more of like in the APAC region or even globally, right? So are you exploring, are you guys doing a differentiated strategy for each of the markets in Southeast Asia? And maybe you could, share more. I'll start with Lennix and then Saad.
Yeah, the exchange business is pretty much the bread and butter is the same. It's a combination of trading infrastructure, matching engine, and also wallet infrastructure. But normal exchange is a heavily regulated business. So the good thing about guys like OKX is I think the global regulation landscape changed a lot in recent half year and 1 year. So the silver lining is that we got license to apply. So for SEA's market, despite the fact that it's called SEA, but each of the market we see some different progress in terms of regulatory developments for us to participate. So I think each country got a little bit different in terms of strategies. If the licensing framework is actually ready, I think we are ready to pursue. And also across global scale, I think we would rely on our wallet strategies as a product, as a go-to-market strategies.
Yep. Okay. Saad, do you have the same opinion?
Yeah, I think I would echo Lennix here. I think each of these markets is quite unique. Even though the business is quite standardized, like Lennix said, it's a matching engine, it's an exchange. But the strategy obviously has to be tailored to the market. And just to give you some context, we've had a physical presence in Southeast Asia, in Singapore so far, only just Singapore. And Singapore is obviously, the regulatory framework is very clear. MAS is kind of a forward-thinking regulator, and we work very closely with them. And ultimately, the audience, the Web3 sort of adopters in Singapore are also generally more sophisticated. So we use that as a base for product innovation and even product development. That's for Singapore. As Daniel mentioned, Thailand is a really interesting market. Trading volumes are huge. We don't have a physical presence here, but a really interesting market that's worth considering. I think when we look at some of the other countries, I think the use cases might be different. So, for example, in the Philippines, there's a lot of Web3 gaming stuff going on, and probably we need to think about as an exchange. At the end of the day, we're kind of a horizontal in that sense. And how do we support all of the different builders within each of those sub-verticals, so to speak? Yep. And just to, I was talking to someone outside, and they were sharing a story about how they were in Vietnam and they were kind of renting off Airbnb an apartment for a couple of weeks. And, they were talking to the owner, and the owner said, you can send me Vietnamese dong. He's like, I don't have Vietnamese dong. He's like, oh, you can send me USDC, right? So it just shows you kind of like the adoption of stable coins, especially in like
the landlord.
The landlord said, you can just send me USDC. So especially in Southeast Asia, where we're seeing most of the local currencies actually depreciate against the US dollar, a lot of people are using stables for hedging, for sort of parking their funds in USDC, or USDT. So I think there's different use cases across the whole region, and each sort of country is unique. And we, as we enter some of these markets, we're going to keep that in mind as we adopt what the local, use case really looks like.
Yeah. So can I piggyback on that to ask, like, how can you then compare the C6 countries with, say, other countries, maybe the US or UK, or for Lennix point of view, maybe Hong Kong, kind of like versus like the C6 countries. Maybe Lennix, since you're holding the mic.
Despite the fact that because being regulated, the standard and the framework and the details across different regions is actually very different. Some of the jurisdictions only require for kind of like AML registrations, but some of the jurisdictions requires to segregations of client money and also having infrastructure. I mean, wallet infrastructure, exchange infrastructure, data infrastructure on the ground. I think and the size of the market in terms of product offering is also hugely different. So it's proved the stage that crypto starting to being regulated, but the phase and the stages that being regulated across all kind of product, I think it take probably a lot of time.
Yep. All right. Saad, do you have anything to add?
Yeah. Look, on the regulatory side, again, there's like huge variations. But at the end of the day, I think the underlying sort of, motivation around this is really, basically the regulator might be different. So for example, in Thailand, a lot of the crypto exchanges are regulated by the SEC, which is the securities, as a security effectively. And then in Indonesia, it's basically regulated under sort of a commodity regulation. And so each of these markets has some nuance, but ultimately the underlying objective for most of these regulators is, as Lennix mentioned, they're looking at, what are you doing around compliance, around AML, sort of terrorist financing, and how are you sort of complying to all of those requirements. The second piece is around reporting. So they want to effectively make sure that, you're reporting and keeping things transparent as it relates to your operation. And finally, it's about customer protection, right? So how are you protecting your customers against fraud and those kind of things? So ultimately, while there's nuance in terms of what that regulatory regime might looks like across different markets, and there might be a different regulator across each of these markets, but the underlying motivations are the same. And as an exchange, or even as any other sort of Web3 enterprise, as long as you have that sort of underlying infrastructure to make sure you're covered on all three of those areas, I think you can effectively operate.
Yep. All right. And then Paul, you kind of alluded on this a while ago in terms of like the readiness of the markets in building. How do you think like the companies within like the C6 countries can then build on like layer 1 or, for example, on XPLA?
Local companies in C6 countries?
Yes.
In general?
In general.
Well, I think with any market, you need to look at three things. So one is the general perception of Web3 in your country. And two is, what does the local environment look like in terms of like their willingness to build and adopt Web3. And I think the third would be, how friendly is the government towards Web3 and Web3 regulations. I mean, that's something that you should look at, but I think Daniel covered a lot of the things that
The specific projects.
So I want to take a different approach. So whether it's a C6 country or other countries, what I think is imperative for a lot of the projects to really think about is product market fit. I think that's in a lot of cases in Web3 where unfortunately a lot of the project's success is built around hype and speculation. A lot of times product market fit is of a less priority. But if we are as a Web3 community industry to really advance this industry, I think we need to really figure out, or we need to prioritize product market fit and make sure that they work. And that's something that the users are willing to use. And through that, we'd be able to bridge over the Web2 users over to Web3 and really grow the industry. So I think product market fit is something that is not talked about enough, I think, in our industry yet. But yeah.
All right. So we've discussed insights. We've also discussed opportunities. So I want to ask, Lennix, what do you see as the main challenges for the users of Web3? So the users.
We see a lot of challenge. So from the beginning of the day, it's like very simple challenge: how to buy crypto within the banking system. It takes 5 to 6 years. Even today, I think we solve around 20% of this challenge. So in terms of Web3 adoption, we still got a lot of challenge. So as Paul mentioned, there's huge population in gaming. But the last mile challenge is some technology and some wallet creation, user experience. Huge, big challenge. It's kind of trading structure on chain. We're still limited by the capacity and scalability and even secure part of the basic infrastructure. When we talk to the market makers, whether or not you want to make market on chain or off chain, the simplest question is more like the latency and scalability of the underlying infrastructure. In OKX wallet example, we got daily active user for like 200K, but a majority of time we're trying to introduce concept like MPC wallet, account abstraction wallet, but the fraction in terms of the user participation is very small, like 5% less. So technology, despite the fact it's good, but sometimes it takes a lot of time for education to understand technology, the benefits. Not to mention, you need to introduce a tokenomic concept in the GameFi project. So a lot of challenge still going ahead. But the good thing is we can see a lot of challenge getting overcome and solved by different participants within the industry, and rapidly in recent years.
Okay. So obviously, Lennix discussed the challenges. I want to go back to you, Daniel. So what do you think would be like the improvements that could be done to kind of like increase the user adoption of, Web3 platforms, in general?
So there are a couple of participants in our industry. One is the actual users, the community. There are investors, both retail and enterprises. There are project developers, and lastly, the regulators.
Yep.
I think we all have different roles. Starting from the back, I think for regulators, there's always regulating a new market and new industry is really, really tough, and I do understand. And I'm a big believer where regulator helps accelerate the market rather than it's pulling down. But when I meet with Asian regulators, especially the financial authorities, they're concerned about finding a balance between investor protection and industry promotion.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some authorities like Singapore who has piled up a lot of knowledge, even more than the commercial knowledge workers. So I think other regions should also study hard on this topic and find like a very balanced decision around investor protection and industry promotion. For the community, I think keep on loving what we do on Web3, I think, and for developers, I think reinforcing and innovating the UI UX more friendly for the users is absolutely a must.
Yep.
Localizing languages with what Web2 companies have done in the past 10, 20 years is also a must. Saad, you mentioned like Uber, Airbnb, it provides seamless experiences in each of the countries. So for investors, I really liked at the blog written by Chris Dixon from A6DZ this week, and he mentioned this industry is divided into people who view it as innovation of computers versus a casino. And I hope more investors have more fundamental understanding and knowledge about blockchain as alternative technology or digital ledger rather than just a means of investment vehicle.
Yep. So you also kind of like mentioned there about like, education and then the role of the companies to, to raise the awareness. So it's not just, the user or the community doing that, but there's also a role played by the institution. So I'm going to ask this question to Saad. So how, can you share more of or if you have any examples of educational or awareness activities that you guys are doing at Gemini? Is there something different you're doing within the SEA-6 countries, or is it the same, or maybe you could share more?
Yeah, I think, when it comes to sort of education, we've had programs in the past, and we're sort of looking at various different programs now as well. I think it's really important that, at the end of the day, it's a pretty vibrant community here in Southeast Asia, right? So ultimately, it's about engaging with the community that exists, and I think events like this do a lot in terms of community engagement. So just being present at some of these events and engaging with some of the other builders in the community. I think it's really important when we come to things like this where whether it's partnership building, relationship building, 1 + 1 = 3, and I think that's where a lot of the discovery happens. At Gemini, obviously, when we launch new products, one of the things we obviously want to build upon is how do we actually educate consumers on what that product ultimately is doing, and we use that avenue to, whether it's videos, whether it's content, to help drive awareness for that product. OKX does a phenomenal job of this, so I'll give props to Lennix and his team for doing some of that as well.
Yep.
And yeah, so really, I think just putting out content, making sure customers are aware of what we're offering and how those offerings can actually work for them, working at a grassroots level when it comes to sort of engaging with the community through things like this, or generally in the jurisdictions that we're physically present in, whether it's through events, whether it's through working with the community. I think that's really our approach.
Yep.
And it's I think the Web3 industry is 24/7. It's global and it's completely distributed. So that presents its own set of challenges. But I think
Yes.
a lot of the Web3 builders have figured out a way in how to navigate that as well. So yeah.
24/7. Lennix, do you have anything to add in that?
Yeah. Adoption is difficult. Adoption is never come naturally. So you expect a super apps or super whatever applications that happen out nowhere, and you got millions of users and bring adoption. But I don't think so. I think it's a collective effort. Collective efforts mean you need to have a very good product and people really like to use. But at the same time, the distribution channel, legal framework, regulatory all need to evolve at the same time. So think about that. Maybe the best game in the world, probably, I don't know, Call of Duty, for example. But it's only success because of maybe a console, or because it's only success because of Tangshan, the distribution channel. So you need everything to evolve at the same time. And also the underlying technologies need to be sufficiently good at the same time too. So you expect real adoption when everything is ready.
Yep. All right.
I think what Lennix is saying is there's no silver bullet. There's a lot of lead bullets, and we just gotta, keep trying things. And whether it's from a product perspective or whether it's education, content, I think all of those things combined actually lead to driving adoption.
And I mean, we're still in the early stages, actually, right? You know what I mean. And conferences like this, where we share knowledge, we interact with different folks within the different industries, which would not be able to meet anyway, is I think a good way of doing that grassroots like education and what have you. So like we're almost finishing and wrapping up, but I want to ask you guys like a bonus question, like what is the most exciting like project or something that Web3 that's gonna be booming in Southeast Asia that you're looking for? This is a personal question, so you don't need to like answer it on behalf of your company, or you can. So Daniel, you want to start?
It's really hard to pick one project, but I would say like a sector would be finance, because still 60-70% of the people, maybe not in Thailand, but others, Southeast Asia, are unbanked. And I think blockchain as a financial vehicle is really going to empower younger generation to do more at a global scale.
Yep. Saad?
Yeah, well, instead of naming a project, I would say sort of
Or an application.
or an application. I'll say a development generally, which has been sort of really meaningful for the industry, has actually been the ETFs, I would say. And
Yep.
in the ETF, I mean, the way it helps sort of, it builds the pipes to drive sort of adoption, right? It just makes it really simple for people to adopt, because you can just go into your brokerage account. You don't have to do anything. You just go into your brokerage account and just press a buy button like you would for a stock. And I think ultimately the wealth creation sort of that happens at that level ultimately flows down to all the projects and further down the risk curve as you go to sort of more speculative projects and more sort of interesting projects. So I think that just drives the industry overall, and that's been a sort of meaningful, inflection point for the industry, at least this year. So I'll talk about, speak to that.
Yep. Yeah, that's good. I was gonna say that too, by the way. You stole that. But okay, Lennix.
Yeah, I think the exciting and probably necessary development would be regulated stablecoin under your currency, under national currency, because once the stable is on chain, you probably solve half of the financial inclusion problem. You literally put their banking system, remittance system, and all the financial product on chain. Basically immediately, or half of it. So one is so I would be very exciting if I think the SEA market will be gradually issue the regulated stablecoin on chain.
Okay, Paul. Last but not the least.
I'll say it. XPLA, you should be on the watch. For
When
XPLA.
is it coming?
No, so I mean, I think Web3 market in general. It starts with finance, the financial sector. Once that catches up, once that grows, I think the gaming is, I guess, benefits from that secondarily. So, I mean, these guys mentioned all the good stuff, so I'll just talk about gaming in general.
Yep.
I think the Southeast Asian markets are very, very interesting. Their ARPU versus the GDP per capita is higher than other markets. Although like the absolute amount might be smaller, but versus what it is, the GDP per market capita is larger. So they have real gamers here. There are people that really want to play the games, and they would pay to play the games. Now, does that translate over to Web3 gaming? It's different. So with our largest game is called Summer's War. It's been in service for the past 9 years. It generated like about $3 billion. Now we launched a MMORPG version of that game as a Web3 game, and we see Thailand as a market that spends a lot more than Japan, France.
Oh, is
Hong
it?
Kong.
Okay, interesting.
But if you translate it over to Web3, we don't see uptick in user acquisition. Versus in Philippines, Vietnam, we're seeing 15 to like 20% increase in user acquisition through the Web3 games. So it's different from market to market. But what is certain is that the Southeast Asian users are very receptive to airdrops, to token earning. So that's something that we're trying to, I guess, implement to our tokenomics as part of our launch go-to-market strategies with our games. So yeah.
Thanks so much. So I guess you've heard all the, the insights, opportunities, and also the challenges within this industry. But then, the main message that I'm hearing is that it's a collective effort of the entire ecosystem, whether you're an exchange or layer one, or obviously you're in research, which is, very, very, helpful. Like we need all to work together for the next billion users. And yeah, I think that's all. And I'm not sure if there are questions from the audience, but otherwise, thanks so much for listening.
Yeah.
Thank you.